Picture this scenario. You're pushing 60 in the United States. You've been grinding at your job for 3.5 decades. No games, no bullshit. You showed up and did exactly what they asked. You pull up your retirement savings. There's $150,000 sitting there. It's not spectacular, but you figure it'll do. You run the numbers. 7 more years working gets you to $300,000. Throw in Social Security benefits and you're thinking, maybe this works out. Then your health collapses. Could be anything. A tumor. Your heart craps out. Your spine gives up. The specific disease is irrelevant. What matters is you're suddenly unable to maintain full-time work. Maybe you can't work at all. Your employment vanishes. Your health coverage vanishes alongside it. And that $150,000, it hemorrhages away. Every single month. Just trying to stay breathing. Just keeping basic utilities running. Fast forward 3 years, you're 61 now. The account is empty. You're not old enough to claim full Social Security. You're too physically broken to hold down a job. And that's the moment reality crushes you. There was never a plan B. There was never supposed to need one. You followed every rule they gave you, and it protected you from absolutely nothing. This isn't some theoretical nightmare. This is actively destroying millions of lives as we speak. And here's the part that should terrify you. This isn't bad fortune. This isn't some design flaw. This is precisely how they built it. Stick around, because once this clicks for you, your entire understanding of work, retirement, and doing it right gets flipped upside down. The contract they broke. There used to be this understanding. You probably absorbed it as a kid, from family members, from educators, from supervisors. It was straightforward. It made logical sense. Find employment. Put in effort. Stay committed. Clock in daily. Don't make waves. And when you've given them 30 or 40 years and your body's worn down, someone would ensure you were secure. Your employer, your government, the infrastructure itself. Somebody was going to guarantee you didn't wind up destitute. This wasn't merely guidance. This was an implicit contract everyone recognized. You surrender your hours, your strength, your prime years, and the payoff was security when you physically couldn't labor anymore. Millions constructed entire lives around this arrangement. They trusted it because everyone surrounding them trusted it. That's simply how America functioned. But somewhere across recent decades, that arrangement got shredded. The contract got ripped up, and the people who invested 40 years holding up their end are discovering there was literally nothing waiting for them. Currently, 35 million Americans are approaching retirement age with zero savings. Not lazy people, not people who avoided work. People who labored their entire existence and got trapped in infrastructure that rewrote the regulations without any announcement. 35 million people. That exceeds Canada's entire population, all careening toward old age completely broke with no strategy. And the brutal part? These are the people who executed everything correctly. They worked their asses off. They attempted to save. They obeyed the guidelines, and the guidelines annihilated them regardless. Also, when your body becomes your enemy. Here's the reality about aging that makes everything exponentially harder. When you're 25, you can gamble, abandon employment, shift industries, relocate across the country, screw everything up and rebuild. You've got time on your side, physical energy, entire decades to bounce back. At 55, none of that exists anymore. Trying to switch career paths? Yeah, good luck with that. Corporations claim they appreciate experience right up until it's you competing against someone 30 years younger willing to accept half your salary. Take a wild guess who gets selected. Your income probably flatlined years back. Maybe you got some pathetic cost of living adjustment if fortune smiled. The substantial promotions? Those ended sometime in your 40s. By your 50s, your only objective is avoiding getting axed. But the actual crisis isn't your work history. It's your physical condition. The entire retirement infrastructure operates on one catastrophically flawed premise, that if your savings are insufficient, you simply labor for additional years. That's not how human bodies function. You can budget flawlessly, implement every financial strategy perfectly, but you cannot budget around your knees disintegrating. You cannot strategize around malignant tumors. You cannot invest your path out of cardiovascular disease or diabetes. And when your body betrays you, every contingency plan evaporates instantly. This is the snare. You must accumulate enough before your health deteriorates and before your employer determines you're too costly. That window is incredibly narrow. For millions, it already slams shut. Yeah, the infrastructure keeps repeating, just work additional years, like it's an actual option. Sometimes your body makes that decision for you. And when it happens, there's absolutely nothing to catch your fall. The numbers game. Nobody can win. Let me demonstrate why instructing people to just save more is so goddamn insulting. Say your annual income is $50,000. Post-taxes, you're clearing roughly $38,000. That breaks down to about $3,200 monthly. Now observe how rapidly that evaporates. Rent or mortgage, $1,200. And that's actually cheap for most locations. Health insurance premiums, $400. Vehicle payment, $300. Auto insurance, $150. Utilities and services, $200. Food expenses, $400. Fuel costs, $150. Mobile phone, $80. Student loan payment, $200. Credit card minimum, $100. That totals $3,180. We've already exceeded the budget. And we haven't addressed clothing yet, or replacing things when they malfunction, or any unexpected costs whatsoever, or anything that makes existence remotely tolerable. We haven't discussed supporting your aging parents when they need assistance, or contributing anything toward your child's education expenses, or the reality that your vehicle will eventually require mechanical repairs. So where precisely is this magical extra money everyone claims you should be stashing away? The notion that millions are simply choosing not to save, that they're all being irresponsible and reckless. That's not merely incorrect. That's a deliberate lie people tell themselves to avoid confronting the actual problem. Here's a superior framework for understanding it. Your financial life resembles a conveyor belt. Its currency enters one end and rockets straight out the opposite side. You're not stationary. You're not advancing forward. You're just sprinting in place as frantically as possible, desperately trying not to get knocked off. And it's deteriorating. The cost of literally everything keeps climbing faster than people's earnings. In 1980, housing cost approximately 3 years of income. Currently, it demands more than 5 years of your total yearly earnings. Healthcare, education, insurance policies, all of it has exploded exponentially, while compensation barely budged whatsoever. The divide keeps expanding. Things that used to be standard expectations, like home ownership or accumulating savings, are now completely unreachable for most people. But instead of acknowledging the infrastructure is fractured, we just keep blaming individuals for not striving hard enough. If one individual cannot save money, fine. Maybe that's their fault. But when 35 million people cannot save, that's not individual responsibility. That's systemic failure. When an entire generation is drowning simultaneously, you cannot just instruct them to swim with more effort. What they stole while you weren't looking, something used to exist throughout America that silently vanished. No public announcement, no advance warning, just gone. The pension system. If you're younger, you might not even comprehend what that represented. But for millions of laborers, it was everything. Here's the mechanism. You got hired by a company. You performed your job duties. And when you retired, the company mailed you a check monthly for your entire remaining lifespan. Guaranteed income. No stock market anxiety, no investment expertise required, just a straightforward promise. Work for us, and you'll be secure when you're elderly. That was the arrangement. Simple formula, dependable system. Then, corporations realized they could retain massive amounts of money by eliminating it entirely. Why promise lifetime payments when you could transfer the responsibility onto workers instead? So gradually, pensions disappeared, replaced with something that sounded superior in marketing materials. The 401k retirement plan. The advertising campaign was flawless. Take control of your destiny. Build your personal wealth. Be responsible for your own future. What they deliberately omitted was this crucial detail. With a pension, the corporation absorbed the risk. If markets collapsed, that was their crisis to manage. Your check still showed up regardless. With a 401k, the risk transferred entirely to you. You had to select investments, comprehend market mechanics, things you were never educated about. And if you guessed incorrectly, or the market imploded right as you retired, that fell entirely on you. The corporation walked away clean. Think about it this way. A pension was a concrete bridge structure. Boring, but fundamentally stable. It transported you across even during storms. A 401k is a rope bridge. Appears acceptable when conditions are calm. But when wind strikes, it swings violently. And if it snaps while you're crossing, nobody arrives to assist. 2008 demonstrated this perfectly. Millions watched their 401k accounts get sliced in half instantaneously. People ready to retire suddenly couldn't. Decades of accumulated savings obliterated. And the response they received was, just work additional years. But not everyone possesses that capability. Bodies deteriorate. Employment disappears. Here's the reality. Pensions protected workers from risk. 401s protect corporations from responsibility. And the transition happened so quietly that most people didn't comprehend what they'd lost until far too late to matter. Why 401k plans fail. Regular people, let me break down precisely why the 401k fails the majority of people. On paper, it sounds reasonable, correct? You contribute some money from every paycheck. Perhaps your company matches it. The money compounds over time. And by the time you hit 65, you've accumulated this substantial pile of cash waiting. Simple process. Except it only functions if three extremely specific conditions all align perfectly simultaneously. Oh, and here's the crisis. Almost nobody can control all three variables. First, the stock market has to cooperate favorably. If you happen to retire during market highs, you're fine. But if you retire during a recession or market crash, your entire retirement just evaporates, and you had zero influence over it. Imagine this scenario. You're 64 years old. You've been depositing money into your 401k for 40 years straight. Then, without any warning, the market plummets 30%. Could be a financial crisis. Could be a pandemic outbreak. Could be military conflict. The cause is irrelevant. What matters is that a massive chunk of your retirement funds just disappeared into thin air. If you were 35, sure, you could wait for recovery. Markets typically rebound eventually. But you're not 35 anymore. You're 64. Your back is killing you. Your knees are shot. Your supervisor keeps discussing bringing in younger talent. You don't have 10 years to sit around waiting for your account to recover. You need that money immediately. So what options exist? You can continue working and pray you don't get terminated or become too ill to continue. Or you can retire with 30% less funding than you planned and somehow make it function. Both options are terrible, but those are your only available options. Second, you have to maintain perfect financial discipline for 30 or 40 consecutive years. You can never access that money prematurely. You can never panic when markets drop. You can never experience an emergency that forces you to stop contributing. But seriously, how realistic is that expectation? How many people navigate 40 years without something going catastrophically wrong? Without a medical crisis? Without employment loss? Without a divorce? Without a family member requiring help? Life happens to everyone. And when it does, that 401k is typically the only accessible money you can reach. So people withdraw money early. They borrow against it. They stop contributing temporarily because they must survive. And every single time they do that, they get punished for it harshly. The 401k treats you being human like you're committing a violation. Third, you're supposed to actually comprehend how investing functions. The infrastructure dumps all this responsibility onto you, but nobody teaches you how to manage it. You're supposed to understand the difference between various stock categories. You're supposed to grasp bonds and risk and diversification principles, and when to relocate money around. But most people don't know any of that information. Why would they? There are electricians, educators, nurses, truck drivers. They vested their lives learning their actual profession, not becoming a financial advisor. So they make errors. They place all their money in incorrect investments. They panic when markets drop and sell at the worst possible moment. They pay excessively high fees because they don't know better. They make all the mistakes that financial experts tell you to avoid, because nobody ever actually educated them on avoiding those mistakes. And here's the most screwed up aspect. The 401k functions excellently if you're already wealthy. If you're earning six figures, if your employer provides a substantial match, if you can contribute the maximum annually, if you can afford hiring a financial advisor, But if you never need to access the money, then absolutely, it's fantastic. But for most people earning $40,000 or $50,000 yearly with families and bills and normal life complications to manage, the 401k isn't a retirement plan. It's a gamble you're forced to participate in whether you comprehend the game rules or not. And when people lose, when their account doesn't grow as expected, when they must withdraw money early, when the market crashes at precisely the wrong moment, everyone says it's their fault. They should have saved more aggressively. They should have invested more intelligently. They should have been more disciplined. Nobody questions if it's even fair to expect regular working people to become investing experts on top of everything else they must accomplish. And nobody questions if it makes sense to tie someone's entire retirement to market forces they have zero control over. Nobody questions if a system that only works perfectly under perfect conditions is actually a legitimate system at all. Why government won't fix this? Here's something that might shock you. The government knows about this crisis. They've known for literal decades. It's all documented in reports and studies, collecting dust in Washington offices. They know Social Security is struggling financially. They know Medicare wasn't designed for this many retirees. They know millions of Americans are heading toward retirement completely broke. So why hasn't anything changed whatsoever? Because in politics, some problems are too massive to fix and too dangerous to discuss publicly. The retirement crisis is one of them. Imagine you're a politician facing re-election. You tell the truth on national television. The system is broken fundamentally. Benefits will likely be cut. People will have to work longer. And there's no easy solution. You lose immediately, without question. Your opponent runs advertisements claiming you want to slash benefits. Your career terminates, and nothing improves because you're not in office anymore to help. That's the trap politicians face. Telling the truth gets you fired from your position. So politicians delay instead. Form committees, commission studies, make vague references to reform. Zero action. Real solutions would mean angering people now to help people later. And the political system is catastrophically bad at that. So the problem expands. The cracks spread wider. And the people who pay the price are the ones with the least power. The workers who believed the promise. It's like living in a house with a cracked foundation. You can observe it widening daily. Instead of fixing it, you paint over it and promise to address it later. Meanwhile, the crack keeps spreading. That's the retirement crisis in America. Every election cycle, it gets pushed further out. Every term, promises are made. Every year, more people reach retirement with nothing. And nothing changes. The system needs you to believe everything will be fine eventually. To keep working, keep paying taxes, keep contributing to the system. Because if people realized how catastrophically bad it really is, how there's no actual plan, the whole thing could collapse. The question isn't whether the government knows. They absolutely do. The question is why, after all this time, the burden still falls entirely on you. And the answer is simple. The people making the decisions won't be the ones dealing with the consequences. How media keeps you distracted. Turn on the news, open any website, look at any magazine article about retirement. What do you observe? Top 10 strategies to save for retirement. 5 money mistakes keeping you poor. Why you're not saving enough money. See the pattern emerging? Every single story places all the responsibility on you personally. Your choices, your mistakes, your problem to solve. And there's a reason for that strategic framing. Blaming individuals is easy. It's simple to communicate. It fits in a headline nicely. And most importantly, it doesn't make any powerful people uncomfortable. But if the problem is just that you didn't save enough money, then nobody else has to change anything. Corporations don't have to pay more. The government doesn't have to fix policies. Companies don't have to bring back pensions. Everyone can just point at struggling people and say, see, they should have been smarter with money. But here's what the media doesn't discuss. If one person can't save for retirement, okay, that might be a personal problem. If a few thousand people can't save, sure, maybe that's still individual failures. But when 35 million people can't save enough, when an entire generation is heading toward old age with nothing, that's not personal anymore. That's the system failing. Think about it like this analogy. If one car crashes on a road, You investigate if the driver was intoxicated or texting or just made an error. But if thousands of cars keep crashing on the exact same stretch of road, at some point, you stop blaming drivers and you start examining the road itself. Is there something wrong with how it's designed? Is the signage confusing or missing? Is there something about this particular location that's causing all these crashes? The media won't look at the road infrastructure. They just keep interviewing the drivers. And the stories are always identical. Someone who made bad choices with money and regrets it now. Someone who spent too much and didn't save enough. Someone who didn't start early enough or didn't invest the right way. Personal stories, personal failures, personal lessons to learn. Those stories aren't lies, exactly. They're true as far as they go, but they're missing the bigger picture entirely. They don't talk about how wages have barely moved while the cost of everything exploded. They don't mention how companies pushed all the risk onto workers. They don't acknowledge that one medical emergency, or one layoff, or one divorce can obliterate years of careful saving. They ignore that the whole game has changed in ways that make it exponentially harder to succeed than it used to be. But talking about that bigger picture is difficult. It takes time to explain. You have to explain complicated systems. It means pointing fingers at powerful people, companies, politicians, corporations, who aren't going to appreciate being called out. And it doesn't give you that nice, simple conclusion that people want. So instead, we just get personal finance tips endlessly. Make a budget. Stop buying coffee daily. Cook at home more often. Use coupons. Get a side hustle. All of that might be marginally helpful, sure, but none of it fixes the actual problem, which is that the system itself is broken fundamentally. It's like trying to teach people to swim better while they're getting swept away by a tsunami. Yeah, being a better swimmer might help a tiny bit, but the real problem is the giant wave, not your swimming technique. And here's what really pisses me off. When you hear the same message repeatedly, it's your fault. You didn't plan well enough. You need to do better with money. You start to believe it, even when you're working 2 jobs, even when you're living as cheaply as you possibly can, even when you're doing everything right and you're still barely surviving. You start to think that somehow you're the problem fundamentally. And that's actually useful for keeping things the way they are, because it keeps you focused inward instead of outward. It keeps you blaming yourself instead of demanding that things change. It keeps you feeling isolated, thinking you're the only one struggling instead of realizing that millions of other people are in the exact same boat. The comfortable lie the media tells is that this is all about your personal choices. The uncomfortable truth is that this is about how the system is designed. And fixing a broken system means somebody with power would have to sacrifice something. That's why the story always stays focused on individuals. Because as long as we're all looking at ourselves, we're not looking at the people who actually have the power to change things. There's no rescue operation, okay? Here's the hardest truth in this entire thing. And it's the one most people desperately don't want to hear. Nobody's coming to save you from this. There's no big reform legislation coming. No new law that's going to fix everything magically. No safety net being constructed for the 35 million people heading toward retirement with nothing. No bailout plan. No rescue operation. Nothing. It's not because people don't care about this. It's not because nobody sees the problem clearly. It's because the problem is just too massive, too expensive financially, and too politically messy to touch. Think about what it would actually take to fix this properly. You'd have to either bring back pensions, which companies will never do voluntarily ever, or you'd have to massively increase Social Security benefits, all which would mean huge tax increases that nobody wants to vote for. Or you'd have to create some kind of guaranteed retirement income, which would get called socialism and killed immediately. Any real solution would mean someone powerful has to lose something valuable. Companies would make less profit. Wealthy people would pay higher taxes. Politicians would have to make decisions that could cost them elections. So instead, all of that burden falls on regular people. On you, on your neighbors, on everyone up there struggling alone, wondering why they can't make it work when they did everything they were told. The reality is really stark and brutal. You're going to have to figure this out yourself somehow. Work longer if your body can physically handle it. Work until you literally cannot anymore. Make your life smaller and more confined. Sell your house and move somewhere cheaper. Rent a room instead of a whole place. Cut everything you possibly can. Lean on family if you have anyone who can help. None of that sounds like the retirement you were promised originally. None of it sounds like the reward for working hard for 40 years. But that's what you've got available to you. Because the alternative, the idea that there's some safety net waiting to catch you, that's not reality. And this is where it gets really lonely and isolating. Everyone's dealing with this by themselves, individually. Everyone thinks they're the only one who screwed up. Everyone's too embarrassed to talk about it openly. Because admitting you're not ready for retirement feels like admitting you failed at life. But it's not failure on your part. It's what happens when a system that was supposed to protect people gets dismantled piece by piece to benefit someone else. You didn't fail. The system failed you deliberately. And until people start talking about this out loud, until we stop pretending this is about personal responsibility and start admitting it's about how things are structured, nothing's going to change. So what can you actually do? Honestly, whatever you can manage. If you're still young enough to have some time remaining, put as much as you possibly can into retirement accounts. Try to live on less than you earn, if that's even remotely possible. Avoid debt like it's poison. Learn about investing, even if you hate thinking about it. If you're older and running out of time rapidly, maybe you need to make some really drastic changes. Or relocate to a place where life costs significantly less. Maybe even another country entirely. Make your life way smaller than you imagined. Pick up whatever side work you can physically handle. Look into any programs or benefits you might qualify for. And more than anything else, talk about it openly. Talk to your family members. Talk to your friends. Talk to people at work. Because the more people who realize this isn't just their problem, that it's everyone's problem, the harder it becomes to just keep blaming individuals. And the louder people might start demanding real solutions. This isn't the video with a happy ending attached. There's no magic trick that makes it all okay. No secret that fixes everything instantly. This is just reality laid bare. A system that was supposed to take care of people got torn apart deliberately. Oh, and now those people are on their own. But understanding that is actually the first step forward. Because as long as you think you're supposed to be able to handle this all by yourself, you're going to keep blaming yourself when you can't. Once you understand this is about how the system works, that the whole thing is rigged against you, you can at least stop thinking it's all your fault. Not your fault at all. You got lied to systematically. The promise got broken deliberately. And now you're stuck dealing with the mess that other people made. People who are never going to have to deal with any of this themselves. The question we should be asking. All right, we've covered a lot of ground here. The broken promise that hard work would be enough. Pensions disappeared completely. Why the 401k doesn't work for most people. Why the math of saving doesn't add up. Why the government won't help fix it. How the media keeps blaming you personally. Why getting older makes everything harder. And why there's no rescue coming. But all of that leads to one enormous question. One that almost nobody wants to ask because the answer is so uncomfortable and damning. If we live in the richest country in the history of the world, if we've created more wealth in the last 40 years than any society ever has, if productivity went through the roof and technology changed everything, then why are tens of millions of people who worked their entire lives now facing old age with nothing? Where did all that money go? Who has it now? And why didn't any of it get to the people who actually created it by working? This isn't about politics or ideology or partisan nonsense. This is just a simple math question. The money exists somewhere. It got created somehow. So where is it currently? The answer is pretty obvious if you look honestly. It went to the top exclusively. To executives, to shareholders, to investors, to people who already had money to begin with. The whole system got redesigned over decades to push wealth upwards systematically. And it worked exactly like it was supposed to work. And the people at the bottom, the ones who showed up every day and actually did the work, they got told to be grateful. Grateful for jobs that don't provide security anymore. For retirement plans that dump all the risk on them. For social security that barely keeps you from starving. For a system that pats you on the back for being loyal and then abandons you the second you can't work anymore. This video isn't about telling you what to do specifically. You're going to make your own choices based on your own situation. This is about asking why things are the way they are. Why does it have to be this way? Why is being financially secure when you're old treated like some luxury, instead of just a normal result of working your whole life. Why are we all just accepting a system that creates this much suffering and acting like it's inevitable? Those are the questions we should be asking collectively, not how do I personally get through this broken system? But why is the system broken in the first place? And who benefits from keeping it that way? Because until we start asking those questions out loud, all together, nothing's going to change whatsoever. The crisis is going to get worse. More people are going to end up poor when they're old, and the money's going to keep flowing upward, while everyone else just tries to survive. Final thoughts. So here's what I want to know from you. What do you think is really causing this retirement crisis? Is it the system being broken? Is it personal responsibility? Is it some combination of both? Leave a comment and let me know what you think honestly. Let's actually talk about this, because the more people who start talking about it, the harder it gets to just ignore the problem entirely. And if you think videos like this need to exist, if you think we need to be asking these uncomfortable questions more often, go ahead and subscribe. Turn on notifications, because I'm going to keep digging into these economic and social issues that most people don't want to talk about. Or just to be clear, everything in this video is social analysis and commentary. This isn't financial advice or legal advice whatsoever. Every person's situation is different and unique. Do your own research and talk to actual professionals before you make any big decisions about your money or your life. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.